here with the Harvesting Hope Virtual Summit. I'm really excited to be back here today with you with a very special guest and a dear friend of mine that we met through the yoga circuit, and now we have been great friends ever since. Dennis Hawk, thanks for being here today.
Oh, it's good to be here, Hope. I love you, and I'm going to love doing this. You never know what's going to happen, so it's always like an adventure. So we'll see.
Exactly. Life is an adventure. Yoga teaches us that all the time. Why don't we kick it off? Why don't you tell the listeners who you are, what you do, and maybe a little bit about yourself?
Okay. Uh, well, she got it. My name is Dennis Hawk. What I do, I create great music, and I create effective tools for people that are on the grow. That's what I do. And I think part of my history that's important is that I've been in recovery from drugs and alcohol and my addictions for 36 years. And sobriety is great. I have a good collection of friends. I love doing music for yoga, and Hope got me started because a workshop failed, and she said, "Well, just bring your instruments and come on down." And that started. I think there maybe have been two other people in the country doing live music with yoga at that time, and that started a whole career of yoga music, meditation music, and kirtan, call response music as well.
Awesome. I love it.
Right now, that's my 40-word version.
And we appreciate that because Dennis can talk a lot, just like I can. So you can imagine our conversations.
Careful, Hope. You're already starting.
We like to poke at each other if we haven't figured that out. But in all honesty, I love this question. What were you like as a kid? And the reason why I like asking this question is because I find that who we are as a child, I believe that we're born with gifts and talents, and we're put on this earth, and then somewhere along the lines we get derailed by people telling us what we should do or shouldn't do, or how we should be, or how we should learn, or how we should like something. And usually when we find ourselves, we're finding our child, we're finding our childlike self, or we're finding that passion from when we were young. So I'm curious, what were you like as a kid? What were you into? Were you always, is this a theme through your whole life, music and guiding and counseling?
That's a really good question, Hope. And let me see if I can do my thumbnail version of this. Holy cow. What were you like when you see, I'm 74. So consequently, what was I like, like the thread of my life? It's a long story, but let me encapsulate it. First of all, the person you see right here in front of you is no different than the person that was 3 years old. Exactly the same. I've been through a lot of stuff, but I'm kind of back to where I was. It's like I like me, I like who I am. You know, it's a beautiful way to live. But I started out loving music, absolutely having a passion for music when it was part of my escape from my alcoholic home. I would run to my room and that's how I learned to play guitar and do music. And absolutely love it. Had my first rock band when I was 15. And then I went on to live for a number of years somebody else's life. It was my mother's goal that I become a clergyman. So I dutifully went off to clergy school and for years and years and years. My dad thought I would never graduate. And then when I did, I was like a square peg in a round hole. I never really quite fit in that. Finally got out of that, and then my mother was a psychotherapist, so I decided to try that field. It was another 20 years of my life. And guess what? I'm finally doing what I wanted to do in the first place, which is creating music and effective tools for people's personal growth. And that whole idea, though, of personal growth, I think has been there from the outset. And I'm going to give some shout to my mom for that, for getting into her own recovery and from addictions and kind of leading the family way. All right, that was actually the short answer, Hope.
So, that was pretty good. And I like asking that question because I think for many of us, we've also developed our tools, I like to call it my toolbox, based on what we've been through. And you and I both know that recovery um afterwards is a blessing, because you learn a lot about yourself and a lot about life and a lot about your limitations and boundaries and all these things that you can't learn reading a book. Which I'm grateful for my addiction at this point in my life, which I never thought I would ever say. But we all have struggles. So what is something that maybe you have struggled with? And I know there's been many points and you've come out on the other end, but what is a struggle that you've had that you wouldn't mind sharing with people? And how did you approach it? Or what insight did you gain that now you're like, wow, like I'm glad I had this? Because for a lot of people I know that are out there, they feel like they are the only person in this world struggling. And it's just not true. It's just not true. We just get kind of tunnel vision with our own crap. So I'd love to hear something that you've learned along the way.
Crap is a good word for it. I think, if I were to put it into a word, because I'm still working on it, it would be a kind of shame-based personality.
Mm.
Being taught little, from little on, that bad boy stuff, and that I grew up with, and especially with a name like Dennis the Menace, and sort of the bad boy who gets in trouble. And I remember getting out of our 37 Ford to go to a train club when I was a kid, and saying to my mom and my sisters and my dad, I'm glad I'm going to do this new club because they don't know I'm a bad boy here. And that sort of bad boy um, syndrome, believing that belief, and it became a core belief, is what it did. And I'm always having to fight up out of that. It's a resistance. Am I worth creating a new song today? Am I worth marketing what I believe in? That that is a constant struggle, and I do have the tools. I do. It's meditation, it's yoga, it's going to my 12-step groups, it's having a sponsor. It's surrounding myself with very positive people. Those kinds of things are the things that really keep me moving and getting up out of the shame bucket. So
I love it. I love it. And one thing I appreciate that you touched on is you're kind of planting the seed for listeners to also realize that, like, some of the stuff that happens when we're younger, and I'm not here to give a lecture about our childhood, but to help us understand that there's this arcing connection between stuff that happens when we're young, good, bad, and different, and who we become as an adult. And it's the insight that we gain from being on the other side to go, oh, wow, I have to address this or change this or work on this if I want to stop repeating the cycle of the same crappy boyfriend or the same, blowing up on my kids over petty little things. And I appreciate that insight that you're offering us, which kind of leads me down the path. And I'm curious, what are some of the self-help is not the greatest word, but maybe self-care tools that you utilize on a daily basis to help you stay in recovery, to help you stay sane, to help you stay on Dennis's path?
uh, there's a lot, and it may vary in varying days, but for the most part, it's like, okay, get up in the morning, get myself a cup of coffee, sit down, and my wife's off work right now, so it's been kind of nice. So we sit down together, and we get our 12-step meditation books out, and she reads to me, which is like really nurturing. It's like I get to be the kid, she gets to be the reader,
Aw.
and then we have some prayers that we do, and then on a good day when I'm back up and running, because I had a knee surgery that's kept me. But I'll do a 20-minute yoga practice, 20-minute meditation, and 20 minutes of aerobics, and that really kind of sets my day and sets the tone for the day. And then because I'm self-employed, and it's like there are four things I do. I make flutes, Native American flutes. I make music, and then I need to be marketing, and marketing both of those. So that really ends up being important. And workshops, we do workshops as well, and kirtan music. But and I need to be doing that all the time, every day. Okay, is that it?
That's a good answer. Well, and I think listening to you, what I'm getting the message of is, okay, so we can have different avenues, we can have different interests, but in all reality, you've kind of condensed them down into categories so that it's easier to focus on what you're doing. I don't know about you, but for me personally, it's like the biggest thing that derails me is when my list is 7 miles long. And if I can group those things into specific areas, I eliminate the overwhelm. And I think for a lot of people in today's world, that's what we're up against, overwhelm.
Yes,
Everything is
absolutely.
so much in our face. How can we reduce that? And I appreciate you sharing that insight. You kind of shared already what your daily routine is like. What are some of the things, I'm curious, Dennis, within your day, do you really find are kind of like a non-negotiable?
Prayer, meditation, and I think moving my body in some way. Those are just, they need to be there. Oh, and I would say also reaching out. I try to reach out to somebody every day because a lot of my work as a recording artist is in isolation, and so uh, I need to be moving and moving toward people, and more than just online with the computer. It needs to be face to face, telephone, something human, you know, that.
Don't you find it ironic that so many of the essentials, when we break it down in life in today's world, with how forward thinking we are and how much technology plays a role, it goes back to human contact? It goes back to these essentials like prayer or meditation or connecting with the self, which I know from my own experience in working with many, many people. Why is it you think, Dennis, of all your years of counseling, why is it you think these are often the first things that people sacrifice? They go, I don't have time for church. I don't have time to wake up and read a devotional for 30 seconds. I don't have time to go out with my girlfriends once every 4 months or my guy friends once every 4 months for dinner. Why is it that we're sacrificing these essentials that make us human and keep us sane? Why do you think that is?
I can't tell anything for anybody else, but for me, a lot of me is fear driven. And so consequently, it's like I put a stick in my back constantly to get things done. And it's like, okay, I can't, it's almost like self care becomes a reward for getting stuff done. But then if I do it that way,
Hmm.
then I never get to it. It's like it just doesn't happen. But if I put the self care first, and by the way, I can also be just as driven by self care. I got on a self care kick a few months ago, and I added up my hours per week, and I was doing 19 hours of self care and wondering why I wasn't getting anything else done.
But maybe that in that point in your life, you needed that. I do feel like self-care does ebb and flow. Sometimes I need a higher quantity of it, and sometimes I just need the maintenance package.
Yes, and but the maintenance package works most of the time. But anything worth doing is worth overdoing in my book. So I mean, it was like, oh, I need some self care. Let's do it half of the week. It's like, damn. But and I am a person of extremes. I just need to, I know that about me.
But I
Anything.
appreciate that insight because I think listening to, and I know you talk with a lot of people with your job, you're kind of everywhere too. One of the things I often hear from people is they say, I don't have any time. But yet there's so many ways that we waste time in today's world that is depriving us of the ability to utilize that time in more beneficial areas. And you touched on the fear word, and it's like, are we afraid of our true potential? Are we afraid of truly seeing ourselves successful? And is as a result that why we're not indulging in self-care practices? This goes right into the question that I like asking people about if they have a coach or a mentor. And I feel like the world is kind of split. Half the world says, yes, I will invest any amount of money in a coach if they can help me get to my next place. And other people will say, I don't have the money for a coach, poor me, blah, blah, blah. It must be nice. And so why is it, how is it that we can tip the scales to start to see that self-care is essential, that going to yoga does not make you a bad mom once a week, that having a therapist or a coach or a counselor or a guide does not mean that you're spending money frivolously if they are helping you get where you need to go, that will help you be more successful in life. And I don't mean 6 figures all the time. What I'm talking about is be a better human being and share your gifts and talents.
I think it's a good point, because I've always had a coach. You know, when I was a therapist, I had a therapist. You know, when I was pastoring churches, I had a go-to mentor. I don't always see things the way they are, and it's always nice to have another pair of eyes, somebody that cares about me, looking in and allowing me to see things in different ways and to uncover things that I don't have. And to me, it's like taking care. I can't do anything if I don't take care of me. It's like that has to be first, and it's from that launching pad that the rocket can go. But without that launching pad, it's just gonna go up and come down in flames.
Well, and having someone that's been where you are and has the insights to save you a little bit of the struggle, to me, is priceless. The old me had a big chip on my shoulder and an ego a mile long, not because I thought I was better than everyone, but because I was afraid, because the ego can also hide in fear. And so as a result, I was very resistant to hearing other people's advice because I didn't want to appear that I didn't know. And that was also a learned behavior from my childhood. Oh, surprise. And so I appreciate this conversation in the fact that, one, the people listening on here today, this might rub you the wrong way. And I apologize for that. But at the same time, I don't, because this is a message that you might need to hear, that maybe there's a way that you're wanting to invest in yourself and you're keeping yourself from that. Maybe there's a guide right in front of you saying, hey, take my class, take my course, join this or do this. And you're like, no, I can't. And you're keeping yourself stuck on purpose, because this is your comfort zone. This is what you're used to. And I love having conversations with you, Dennis, about recovery, because we do that as addicts a lot. It's like we like our misery. It's familiar, no matter how painful it is. And so a self-care check-in is, are you in that self-loathing place? I mean, shed some insight on that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, I would have clients come in that were, because I work with addicted clients who were trauma survivors, and when I was doing that job, and when they would come in, it would be like, they would have their addiction. It was going, it was out of control, whatever they were addicted to, obviously. And then I would address the 90-hour week that they were working. They say, no. I mean, I can't, I own this business and I have to do this and I have to do that. I don't, what do you mean slow down my work schedule? It's like, yeah, can you at least look at that, that part, and to me, that's fear driven. And for me, the opposite of fear is faith, trust, trust in myself, trust in God, trust in the universe. That I get up this morning and I do the best I can moving toward my goals, and it's going to be okay. And when I'm in that spot, I do well. When I think it's me, it's all on me, then when my wife Cindy said the other day, she said, Dennis, she doesn't call me Dennis. What's she call me? D. She says, D, you got the bayonet so far in your back, you can't even move. And, when I'm operating like that with that voluminous task list, it just neutralizes me. I get nothing done then. I'm overwhelmed. So, that makes sense?
Absolutely. It absolutely does. So I'm wondering, in your own words, what does living your best life mean to you? Because you've lived a lot. You've had a lot of experiences. You've worn a lot of hats in your life. And up to this point, in your own words, what does living your best life mean to you?
Well, for me, it's being here now, right? Being right in the present tense. I have this day. I'm with Hope Zvara doing a Zoom thing. This is pretty darn cool. This afternoon, I get to boogie down to Milwaukee. It's 2 hours drive away to be at a treatment center, to be with 30 addicts, to share my music and to share my heart with them and have them share back. That's just what more could I ask than to be in today? Absolutely in today. And I need to say too, the goals, I set goals all the time, but living in the present is more important than whatever gets accomplished or doesn't get accomplished. Like, it's not out there. Happiness isn't out there. It's here, right now, in this breath, in this moment. Yoga's taught me that.
I love it. It makes me think about, Dennis, this whole idea of our culture right now is trying to achieve, achieve, achieve. It's like the next thing we're so focused on, and we're missing the moment. And I find it ironic because obviously, I teach yoga, and many of you listening know I teach yoga. And I recognize this a little bit in the yoga culture too, that even in the poses, it's like, let's get to the next one right away. Let me achieve this one so I can do the next one. And we're already focused on the next pose, be it something simple or the next advanced level of it, or how quick our vinyasa can move, or whatever it is, almost unconsciously realizing that we in fact are not even focusing on the moment in yoga anymore. And I find it fascinating. And I'm sharing this for the first time because usually I keep my mouth shut about this kind of stuff because people are like really either really offended or they agree, one or the other. But I'm sharing this because I think you think similarly within those lines. So it's like, how can we provoke people to challenge them to be more present? And what is the fear that surrounds the distaste or the not wanting or the discomfort to not be present? For me, it was, I didn't like being present because I didn't like feeling. I spent my whole life with an eating disorder, binging and purging, starving myself so I wouldn't have to feel. And then I would purge and I would vomit up those emotions, and then I would feel a void, and that was comfortable for me. And so I've had to teach myself how in the moment the discomfort is okay. It's like pain, not all pain is bad. So what do you have to say about that? I'm curious.
Well, I would probably just echo what you just said, because I think the biggest, what happens when I breathe and I'm in the moment is I get to my heart. My heart opens and I feel stuff. Some of that shit I don't want to feel, and I feel sad, or I feel lonely, or I feel afraid, and my addict self is fill the void. And but when I just allow myself to feel in the present moment, that's really energy. And allowing myself to be in a yoga pose, then staying there for a while, and for those of who do yoga, a vinyasa is a flow that goes for an hour or so, and you go from one pose to the other. I don't think the ancients did it that way. They'd stay in a tree pose for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Because what does it mean to experience this moment in this space? And the more I get to that and open up my heart, what takes me out of my heart is usually my head. The thinking, planning, worrying, those things.
I love it. What makes me think about it is I've been trying to say to myself lately that when I'm in the moment and I'm upset, worried, fearful, angry, afraid, it's because I'm either dragging the past into the present or I'm trying to drag the future into the present. Because if I'm just in the present, none of that exists. And it's such a heavy thought, but such a light thought simultaneously. And so I've been really meditating on that lately because I'm in transition in my own life. And so it's uncomfortable a lot of the time. And so if I just work to stay in the present, a lot of that dissipates. The second I'm not present, it all comes back in.
Yes. That past future stuff is what gets us in trouble. or it gets me in trouble. I'm not going to speak for the whole world. Maybe somebody
No, you're not.
live it well that way. I have no idea. Let's go back to our yoga again. You know, it's you're in transition right now, and I understand. It's like, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're always in transition. You know, and I'm always trying to capture that moment when it's, you know, it's going to stay the same. I'm a musician, for crying out loud. The music market has changed. It's changing every day. Every day. You know, it used to be we'd buy CDs, go out, book a gig, we'd sell CDs, and we'd come home with some money. Well, you go out and you go with some CDs and nobody buys them because why? They're all on Spotify, you know, or Apple. You know, they're streaming music. Oh, okay. So you sell music in social media. Oh, that's the way you do it now, you know. And I'm still too much of a diehard. I still got to get my equipment, gear in the car, and go and do a gig because I love people and I like to be around people. But they aren't buying music the way they used to. It's that changing, you know, that everything is always changing, always in flux. You can't capture it, you know. Enjoy the moment because it's going to be gone, you know, and it just doesn't stay. And I think my ego, wants to capture the moment and keep it.
Mm.
I'm having a good moment. I just want to have this good moment forever. And you know, I think of something I read. I'm reading a great book called Awakening the Slumbering Goddess. My daughter looked at that the other day and she said, "Dad, is there something that you haven't told me?" Which I love. Uh, but it's a book by a psychotherapist in Milwaukee. Last name is Bide, Bide, and in what was important about that book is moving into, well, he's back to moving into the present, but also in archetypes or symbols.
Mm-hmm.
I'm finding symbols are so important, um, you know, especially when we're in transition. We're just like, okay, what's the new symbol that I can grab onto? And usually it's an archetype or imagination. Who am I imagining? And for me, either the spirit animals, you know, an eagle, a bear, a wolf, you know, a buffalo, or looking at the gods and goddesses and using one of them as a model or archetype for my next adventure.
Mm.
It's just having some kind of imagination, you know, that, you know, this is who I need. This is who I need to be to carry myself to the next place.
I love it. What for where you are in your life currently, Dennis, is there a affirmation or a mantra or anything that you're working with right now? I'd love for you to share it with listeners.
Well, the mantra that this is for this month. This month's mantra will be Gam Gam Ganapataye Namaha. There you
Can you
go.
tell people what that means?
Yeah, for those who are not not Sanskrit people, it's simply Gam Gam is a syllable for Ganesha the elephant, and Gam Gam Ganapataye, I'm asking this elephant to get in front of me, clear the way. It's springtime. I need to get some stuff done, but I need things to be cleared out. And so that's become my mantra for this month. And you know, we're doing a bunch of workshops around that also the next few weeks, and it's just, but it's been fun, you know, to just picture an elephant in front of me, you know, and if you don't get too close, you got to stay far enough back so you don't get shit on. But other than that, you know, that elephant, that imaging that elephant in front of me, clearing the way, is just a beautiful thing. It's a simple image.
I love it. I love it. And it's valuable and it's something that you can help keep your mind focused on. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about how to get your music or how to learn more about your workshops or anything like that?
Well, thunderhawktribe.com or Thunderhawk, just look Thunderhawk up on Apple Music or Spotify. We got a lot of good stuff coming. We got 6 new tunes we're going to unload on you right away. There's some good stuff coming down the line. And there's my other stuff, my folk and Native American stuff under Dennis Hawk, Apple, iTunes, all those things as well. And
Awesome.
That's too much information.
Well,
just look at Dennis Hawk with Thunder Hawk Tribe. You'll find it.
awesome. I'll make sure that people get those links. And my last question, and more so it's a favor, would you play a little something for people? It doesn't have to be anything major, but I would love for them to listen to what I get to hear from you. And you're so inspiring through your music and through your talks, and I'd love for you to share.
Okay. Well, this is a Native American flute that I made. And it's kind of a pileated woodpecker. So get some woodpecker energy. So here you go. Here's a little tune for you. If anyone wants to buy a flute, they're not all like this, but there's.
And that's one of your hidden talents. He has a whole workshop in his basement where he makes his flutes, and they are unbelievably beautiful. And so can they go to your website and inquire if they want to know more about flutes?
Yes, they can, or Facebook, Dennis Hawk Flutes.
Awesome, awesome. Any last words for listeners today, Dennis?
I never lose hope, and that's why I love hope. And I'm never going to lose you.
Aw, thank you. And for the listeners today, that's exactly it. Never lose hope. Never lose hope that there is purpose for you, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. My mantra for myself is that if I'm alive and breathing, there's purpose for me, that God still has something that he wants from me. And I wake up every single morning reminding myself of that. And so just know that no matter where you are, there is purpose, there is value, there is hope. Thank you so much. Until I see you again, namaste.